I was 12 when my twin and I were thrown into a truck for a school scout camp trip. Now, we were told, of course, that this was going to be 3 days, 2 nights, full of fun and exciting adventure. But oh, how gullible we were. These field trips happen regularly, usually towards the end of each school year. One time we went to a rice field, the zoo, a coven, because I went to a Catholic school, so there's that. In our seventh grade, it was mandatory for us to be a part of the Girls and Boy Scouts for one of our extracurricular activities. Having the smooth brain of a lumpy couch potato, I barely retain a single lesson or activities. Tie a knot? Nope. First aid? I can't even trust myself. Create your own team's jingle song? Ended up remembering my sister's. It was catchier. So being jump scared by a military truck to pick us up was akin to that of the Grim Reaper knocking at your door to notify of your soon-to-be death. Which, now, I kind of begged it was, since being dragged into the unknown is somehow scarier. Sitting inside, most of us were all excited for what's to come. Little old me and my twin happily chatted with our friends and enjoyed pretending to swallow the rush of air. Both of us were thinking how unlucky our older sister was for missing such an opportunity. From the bustling streets and jam traffic of Indonesia, and bam! We were dropped in the middle of a rainforest. In order to reach the camping location itself, we had to go on a small hike. That was simple enough. The trail was pretty straightforward, and being able to hang around with your friends and sibling was always fun. Even though I was born with not a single drop of physical prowess, I believed in the power of friendship and autonomy. And thankfully, in these trips, we were always given a list of what to prepare and bring. Besides the common essentials like clothes and hygiene, salt was common since it helps defend some insects and ghosts. By the time we reached our destination, we were surprised by how everything had already been set up. The tents were lined up, ready to use, and there was also a big bonfire nearby. Afterwards, to immerse ourselves in the beautiful greenery and wildlife, we were told to hand over our cell phones to our teachers. While it was always sad to depart with my beloved, it was a pretty normal routine. Having changed into more loose outfits, we gathered in a nearby grass area for an icebreaker. Until I heard, "Hey, your leg is bleeding." Looking over, I panicked, seeing it was my sister who stood there blankly like a statue, clueless and ignorant to her surroundings and herself. However, what truly set the tone of this entire expedition was when I zoomed into a particularly small black creature latched onto her knee. And it was at this moment I knew that we were doomed. "Oh, it's just a leech. Don't worry, you guys brought salt, right? Just pour those stuff on them and they'll pluck off." Seeing the existence of a leech was one thing, but knowing that I will be spending the next few days surrounded by them, I wanted more than anything but to shut myself indoors for the rest of my life. While some freaked out, somehow most of us stood our cool, not complaining, perhaps silently screaming inside because that's what I was doing. Later on, I asked my sister why she hadn't noticed that damn thing, and she stared back lacklusterly and answered, "It was only a brief pain, so I didn't think much of it." I was left speechless in fear, worry, and a sprinkle of insanity. However, all of those negative feelings were soon forgotten by the joy of doing fun group activities. There was even a mini water slide, and seriously, who doesn't like slides? Alright, pause. While my sister was fact checking this script, I had been told that during my excitement of playing around with the others, on her side, because of the rain, she had given her glasses away to one of the teachers, which she soon regretted afterwards and was left blind watching my oblivious self. Specifically, she had wobbled towards the pool at the end of the slide, dipped herself in, and somehow got her feet cramped. She could only watch my joyous self in pure insanity, thinking, how in the world is this person able to play around in this freezing cold water and rain? Alright, now back to my perspective. Towards the end of the day, it was time to clean ourselves up. As I waited for my turn, some of the girls walked out looking far more traumatized than they should be. And before I could ask, I was instead given a warning. Pax, stay far from the corner. Thinking that they were exaggerating, I shrugged it off and went to one of the shower stalls. Opening the door, I was met with a wide square space of rustic ceramic tiles. Under the flickering lights of a single hanging lamp, wriggling in the far corner surrounding the drain, was a bunch of leeches. Such a horrific scene was ingrained into my core, haunting me till today. And let's just say, I have never taken the quickest cold shower in my whole life. Dragging what's left of my courage for dinner, we were gathered in a large traditional wooden house. And while waiting for food, some people decided they wanted to explore the place. I was sitting mindlessly with others, chatting and trauma bonding over our individual shower experiences, and out of nowhere, we heard a passing murmur in the air. Just don't go down there. Being a bunch of curious children, there were already a few people gathered around a particular doorway at the far back. My sister and I looked at each other, obviously enticed by the new information, and like a pair of fools with no survival instincts, we went over and took a peek. And then we were soon granted with another one-of-a-kind scenery. Past the open doorway led to a lower level where the stairs and floor were scattered in leeches. An unofficial rule was made then and there. That area is now forbidden. I don't know how I was able to eat after that, let alone sleep for the night. Perhaps knowing that everything was only temporary brought some sort of relief and salvation to my leech mind. The next day, we woke up bright and early. While sleepily eating breakfast, avoiding that one haunting door, our camp leader announced that today's activity would be a long grand trek. Having nowhere to escape and militarized again into a line, we set off into the deep woods of the forest. To make sure we didn't get lost and die off screen, some local experts were spread out in between. But of course, not everything went smoothly, since only a few minutes after, the line slowly fell apart. At one point, I lost sight of my dear sister and could only pray for her safety while I prioritized my own survivability. We shall meet again when fate allows it. Suddenly, one of the guides leading us stopped. A friend of mine asked, "Where are we going now?" Turning around, he then nervously responded, I think we're a bit lost." Huh, cool, no more couch potato life for me anymore. But fortunately, after having an inner existentialist moment, we came across a huge rushing river. Our trusty guide managed to recognize the route again and pointed at the opposite end where some people were seen crossing over. Wait, alright, let's start crossing over, you guys. We have to cross this huge slanted river that's above knee level and has a current speed running my short lifespan. I don't even have non-slip shoes on. It'll be fine. See, the others are doing it. I'll be standing nearby to grab you guys if anything happens. If my trust issues hadn't been high enough, it was now exploding like fireworks. However, seeing how no one else said a word about this, I bottled all my anxiety and threw it into God knows where. The moment I dipped my foot, I knew there was no going back. Not only was the water freezing cold, having to find the right footing and balance with inappropriate shoe wear, our dear guide kindly informed us, "Oh, by the way, there's a lot of leeches swimming, so don't be surprised if you got some on you later." I refuse to think about it anymore. The longer I do, the sooner my anxiety will find its way to open the lid and crawl its way back. And so, through arduous and pathetic athleticism, boosted by only adrenaline, I crossed over unscathed. I thought it was a miracle at first, but then those damn leeches probably had taken a sip of my blood before sweeping off to test other samples. Throughout the next few hours, we continued our trek through the humid and hot forest. Multiple items of glasses and shoes were lost in the process as we were all told to just forget about it and move on. In the last hurdle, they had set up a wall climbing route with the appropriate tool setups and experts waiting at certain checkpoints. To be honest, I was pretty impressed and excited, thinking that I could pretend and Lara Croft my way over. That was until a hideous suctioning feeling came from below. Pax, there's a leech on your ankle. There, looking down, I saw it, wriggling like it was having a grand feast. I was too confident, thinking I had lucked it out so far to avoid them, but there it was. Having been completely desensitized from reality and emotions without losing eye contact with the thing, I silently pulled out my bag of salt. Grabbing a nice pinch of it, I rained dead upon it. Slowly, the leech began to writhe and dry up like a crumpled paper, falling off to the side and onto the dirt. I was a cold-blooded murderer as I monkey climbed the wall. Reaching what was supposed to be the reward of this entire journey, an enormous towering waterfall revealed itself. It was absolutely beautiful. The sight of kids rushing over to swim and play was so wholesome. However, I took one look at it and immediately I wanted to go home. I don't mean to be rude to Mother Nature, except my ideal paradise would be drowning in a pile of blankets and pillows with my phone. The route back was different, and thankfully was much more straightforward with an obvious trail. Instantly, the difficulty had drastically dropped down. Crazy! While not having to worry about crossing any more daunting rivers and leech spawns, I was then faced with a new obstacle, and that was a trail wide puddle of mud. Now, this may be incomparable to the previous challenges, but knowing that there was no way around it, I cringed. Being submerged in water was one thing, but mud? The texture and consistency of such liquid made me want to curl up and die in the corner. But having made this far, I would be a coward to back down now. Calculating the distance and necessary amount of steps I needed to cross over, I was grateful for my height and noodly limbs. I stretched one leg into the middle of the abomination and put my other leg on the opposite side of the puddle. With some encouraging words from my dear friends, I tried not to think about the squeamish resistance of the mud as I quickly pulled myself over. I could hear cheers around me while I congratulated myself over the very difficult achievement. That was until I looked down and my shoe was gone. Hanging my now vulnerable muddy foot in the air, my mind went through a series of crashes. Seeing my obvious frantic look, my friends tried to comfort me. Hey, it's okay, it's just a shoe. It's not mine. Huh? It's my older sister's. She doesn't know that I'm borrowing it. I would be going back to hell rather than a home. Well, this would be a story for another time. Just know that us siblings would never let each other go once one of us has the upper advantage over the other's guilt and conscience. And that notion alone scared me more as I turned back at the goopy mess of nature. There was only one answer to my problem. It's somewhere in there. I know it. I plunged my entire arm into the monstrosity, ignoring whatever fear I had with it before. I searched aimlessly for the lost object. And then I found it. Goodbye, self-dignity and pride. Hello again, dear shoe. Mourning in silence for what was lost in me, I quickly doused all of the mud from my leg and shoe with the only water bottle I had, and I wore that damn thing again and moved on. Time passed by, and everyone had gathered back at the camping location to recuperate and grieve and more trauma bonding. We don't need to talk about how the second round of showering went. Those creatures were still there, living rent free in the corner. Dinner came. All of us were already discussing the salvation that would come the next day. And while eating, screams could be heard far from me. At first, I ignored it, savoring only the flavors in my mouth. Yet as the noise grew louder, my annoyance followed as I looked up to see a leech flying in my direction. Apparently, it had latched onto another girl's hand, and having panicked, she flung it into the air. And it just so happened towards me? My mind hadn't processed. Time slowed down, and I could feel All the pent-up rage inside me coursed through my body like a raging fire. Instincts drove me. My arm moved before I slapped it midair. Only the sound of my heartbeat and ringing in my ears gave me a moment to realize what just happened. And while some people were in awe and checking up on me, I sat there eating in a slow descent to madness. At the end of the night, they wanted to light up the bonfire while we roasted some marshmallows. But unfortunately, we lived in a country rich in rain, as it extinguished whatever sense of normalcy we could have. And to make up for it, we were instead offered instant cup of noodles. Awkwardly, going back to our tents, I was completely knocked out. On the last day, everyone's energy was understandably higher. We were told to wear back our scout uniforms as we reunited with our phones. I never felt so much relief sitting inside that military truck again, and by the time we got back to our school, it was already nighttime. My sister and I were picked up as both of us were driven back to our home. I was too exhausted to chat with my sister, but one look at her still dead blank expression told me enough. Spotting our older sister, we ran to her with open arms. Go away, you stink. Later on, once my twin and I recuperated, we gathered together and discussed what happened. And she told me that when she had to cross that one giant river, a leech had snuck up into her pants and latched onto her calf. Noticing the pain and how it dragged across her skin, she grabbed it from outside and twisted the bloodsucker. It was only after a shower that she blurrily witnessed the entrails of said leech flow out. Again, I was left speechless in fear, worry, and another dose of insanity. Knowing that this experience alone cemented both of our life preferences into that of a sheltered one, we allowed it. Years later, when my family and I moved to the beautiful country of Canada, a friend of mine dropped by asking, "Hey Pax, wanna go on a camping trip?" Out of self-preservation alone, I politely rejected them. So this video ended up being way longer than I thought, and I'm still pretty new to art and animation. So when I wrote this script, I got so excited telling all the details, and it got close to 3,000 words, which I thought it would only be 8 minutes or so, but then the audio record ended up being way beyond that. Realizing that this will be my first video in the channel, I'm quite curious as to what kind of impression I'm giving off. But anyway, I can't wait to share more shenanigans and just parts of my life in general. I have a lot of stories to tell just from my childhood alone that would just end up being so crazy. But I won't promise that my videos will be the same length, but thank you for staying till the end. Stay safe out there and take care of yourselves. Bye!